I was so disappointed in this movie. So as I said before in my other Strangers reviews, I said that I wasn't sure if this was going to be like a sequel or prequel. But yeah, apparently these movies are going to be like a trilogy. So the movie's about a young couple that get trapped in like a sort of small town area. The car essentially stops working, so now they're forced to stay in this small town in the middle of nowhere. So immediately I noticed the actor Madeline, who plays the main girl in this movie. I know her more for Riverdale. I've seen her in other films, but I can't remember what those films were called. But this review is going to be no spoilers. I might make another review of the same movie talking about spoilers. Don't worry if you don't want to get spoiled, because I'm not going to spoil anything in this movie. Like I said, I might make another review based, you know, talking about spoilers and stuff. Okay, so let's get into positives. At the start of the movie, I liked the couple. I thought they were, you know, likable at the start. They didn't seem annoying, they didn't seem rude, they didn't seem irritating to deal with. They just seemed like normal people that you see in day-to-day lives. But I think the thing I liked about this movie even more was the sequence. So the sequence are the same in every single movie. In the Strangers 1, Strangers 2, they're getting all lovey-dovey with like a couple, and then they hear a bang on the door. I think this movie did it the best, like hands down. Like I thought this sequence was literally amazing. And it's a shame as well, because I remember when I was watching that sequence, I was just kind of like, well, of course they ruined it. They had to ruin it. They literally just ruined the whole thing. I feel like what helped it as well, this sequence in this movie instead of the other ones, was that visually this movie looked a lot more better than the other previous films. Mainly, I guess, because those movies came out in 2008. The second one came out in like 2018 or 16. So I guess it makes sense that visually the movie would look a lot better versus the other ones. But I don't know, man. I feel like this time when she was like, oh, is Tamara home? There was a longer pause between them looking at each other and looking at the girl, and just, I don't know, I feel like it was really effective. I feel like the music, the background music added to the like a sort of effect, which I thought, yeah, man, this was like a great job. I felt like this was like a step up. I think after seeing that, it was going in like the right direction, but then, you know, I'm not really a fan of reboots, because they usually just do the same things from the previous films, which is not necessarily a negative, because it still has to maintain the source material, especially if it's like, you know, a well-known established film already. But I just feel like they take out too many things from the first and pull it to this movie, which I don't like, because it just feels like almost the same movie at times. So obviously the boyfriend goes out, the Riverdale girl stays in the cabin, and then what do you know, you hear a second knock. I think what I liked particularly about the knocks in this movie was that it was so much more aggressive, and I feel like the sound in this movie was so good. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like I said, maybe it could be I was watching it in the cinema, but the way the sound of the banging was so much more aggressive. To me at least, it put me off edge, because I was like, I really like the music they're playing in the background, so adding the loud aggressive banging, it just made it more effective. Obviously after the second bang, that's where things take off again. They start to, you know, mess with her, play games with her, the same old stuff in the old Strangers. But I think one thing I liked about this movie is that, you know, the big stranger guy, they utilized him so much better in this movie, because when he's walking, you hear like this loud thudding sound, so I guess makes you feel more intimidated. And I don't know if it's a camera work, but he appears a lot more bigger, like more of like a giant, and more of like a presence. Whereas in the other movies, the only thing that makes him intimidating is the weapons that he's carrying. And, you know, in my opinion, he should have been portrayed almost like Jason. When you see Jason, you see him as this sort of giant, tall, muscular man, and already alone that's like intimidating, right? So I feel like this time they utilized what they had. And you know what, I also think Madeline was a good actor in this movie. I can't even lie, like as much as I hated this movie, I thought Madeline was great. The character she was portraying, like I always give props where props was doing it, and I've always seen her in different things and shows, so I know that she's a good actor. It didn't seem like she didn't want to be there. It seemed like she was putting a lot of effort, she was putting, you know, energy. So I can respect that about actors, because you get actors that sometimes they just don't put in the effort, which makes the movie even more worse than it already was. So she was at the highlight in this movie for sure. That's it, man, that's it. That's all the positives. Let's get into the negatives. So one of my problems in this movie is the character choices. Oh my days, these characters are stupid. They're literally like James in the other movie, but even more stupid. Especially the boyfriend. This guy is so dumb. There's certain sequences where, if anything, the movie could have ended, but the character choice decisions and the character, you know, decision making, it just makes you sit there rolling your eyes, because you're thinking, it's just so dumb. Because there's another sequence before the sequence I'm talking about where he does something, but then when it comes to implementing the same thing, he ends up just making a dumb choice, and I'm just thinking like, yeah, speechless, speechless, if I'm being honest. It's hard to talk about this movie without talking about spoilers, in it, because there's so many sequences that happen where it's just hard not to spoil it. I'd say this film was a lot worse than the other two for sure. Like I said, I think the boyfriend was good in the start. He seemed like a logical character at the start, but then over time I was just like, this is the same rinse and repeat from the other movies. I don't understand why make these characters so dumb. Why can't you make a film where these characters are, you know, somewhat smart? I'm not expecting them to be a genius, but then you're making them make choices that no one's gonna make, and it just makes you get annoyed because you know that no one will do this, and they actually expect us to sit there and look at that movie and think, yeah, that makes sense, right? My other negative is that this movie is so boring. Like, when I say there's dead space, there's literally dead space in this movie. You could literally make this whole movie a TikTok. Like a 30-second TikTok, because that's how much things they could cut out of this movie. You're just sitting around bored because nothing's actually happening, nothing's actually taking place. And yeah, bro, this ain't no slasher movie. I don't care what anyone says, this ain't a slasher movie. This is not a slasher movie. This basically feels like the first one. It's like they're going backwards now. They're going back to the first one where it's just suspense, nothing's really taking place. We're just sitting here bored. But if anything, I'd say the first one's even better. It's like one step forward, one step back. Like, what's going on, man? Like, bro, the character Chucky, he knows on a Sunday, bro, I gotta catch them bodies, man. I gotta catch them bodies. Because at the end of the day, people like Chucky, people like Jason, people like Michael Myers, those characters know that their movie is less than 2 hours, so they gotta rack up them bodies, literally. These stringers are all talk, no action, I'm telling you. They do the same things. I don't understand. Because every other slasher I've seen, they actually catch up them bodies, but for some reason in these movies, particularly the first and this one, they're just doing nothing, sitting around doing nothing. I don't get it. The guy who directed it, Renny Harlin, he's done like Die Hard 2. From what I can see, he doesn't really do a lot of horror movies. He's done a few, but not enough to where it stands out as a resume. They have such a good premise, they have such a good sequence. The whole knock knock, is Tamara home? I feel like it works innit? But bro, man, I'm not feeling the suspense in this movie, man. I'm not feeling it. We're essentially getting the same characters making the same dumb choices from a different movie, but essentially the same movie because it's still strangers. But they're just implementing the same things from the previous movies and adding a few little tweaks, but it's still the same movie essentially. Like, you get more interaction with people. Like in the other movies, they didn't really interact with anyone. It was kind of like a self-concluded film. But even then, the characters they saw in a small town, they didn't really add anything to the movie. So I was like, I mean, it is a trilogy, so maybe they might introduce, you know, more things in the trilogy that relates to the small town characters. I don't know. Bro, if anything, you might as well watch the first and second one because it's basically the same as those ones. I mean, there's not much to get out of this movie at all. Like literally, the fact they call it a horror and slasher literally makes me laugh because ain't no way in hell this film's a slasher. Trust me. If you're looking for slasher, don't watch this. Rinse, repeat. Rinse, repeat. They have all the tools, they have all the visuals, they have all the effects, but yet they don't actually utilize what they have, which makes no sense. They got a massive ass big guy strangers. This guy can do so much, but instead they just want to play hide and seek with all these strangers. I don't understand that. Why? And you know, going into the end, the way it all wrapped up and stuff, you kind of sitting there thinking, oh, okay then. So it's going to be one of those movies then. You kind of see where they're going with it. Because when you see chapter 1 in the title, you kind of have an idea of what they're going for. And I feel like they're trying to make it into like a franchise, almost like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. But boy, you better step up in those two other movies, man, because I'm telling you right now, if this movie was not a slasher, they need to up it. I'm telling you. Like I said, I'll leave it at that. It's so hard to talk about this movie without spoiling it. So I might make another review talking about all spoilers, so that way I can get out what I really want to say. But if you like this video, hit the thumbs up, subscribe. Comment down below, let me know what you thought about this movie, or even if you like this movie, let me know why. You know, I'm open to, you know, knowing why and stuff. So yeah, you can watch my previous Strangers reviews up here, and yeah man, that's it. See ya.